Good. This is a very great event. It's something I'm really proud to get to be part of. I'd like to say that today's my dad's birthday. My dad's a first generation Italian American. His father came here from the island of Ischia. My dad worked with my father as a cabinet maker in Rhode Island, and grew up and has become one of my greatest inspirations. And so I think it's especially, I feel especially proud today being his birthday to be able to be up here and talk about Italian innovation and how the European community is really turning into something wonderful and exciting. So we've got a great panel. We are talking about making and the maker movement, and how the maker movement, the artisan and the craftsmanship is growing into this new world called making. Make magazine, which many of you guys have seen, is seated on your chairs, was founded in 2004. First issue of Make magazine came out in 2005, and it became sort of the figurehead for a movement, the maker movement. In 2006, we launched the first Maker Faire in San Mateo. That year, there was 20,000 people that showed up to the San Mateo County Fairgrounds. It was one of the most amazing events that I'd ever seen in my life. Incredible turnout, incredible amount of sponsors, just a jam-packed crowd. Fast forward to 2013, last year, San Mateo Bay Area Maker Faire had grown from 20,000 attendees from that first year to 120,000 attendees. But not just, we didn't just see growth in the San Mateo Bay Area Maker Faire. Globally, we have grown the Maker Faire concept, two flagship shows, two flagship shows. We've got 5 featured Maker Faires, and then globally in 2013, we had 100 Maker Faires around the planet. Over 530,000 people last year attended a Maker Faire. And I think this is really indicative of how the maker movement really is this growing, exciting movement which is full of innovation. There's embracing technology, embracing some of the old forms of craftsmanship and mastery, but really pushing it forward into the 21st century. And I'm thrilled to be part of it, thrilled to be someone that can help tell the stories of makers. And I'm really excited to have a great panel here today that can help explain to you guys the type of things that makers are doing and how this is something that everyone really should be excited about as we watch it grow and move forward. So first of all, I'd like to introduce Riccardo Luna. Riccardo is former editor of Wired Italia and various other publications. He's a writer for La Repubblica. He's president of Wiki Italia, and he's the VP of Made in Italy Foundation with Massimo Bonzi, which many of you guys may know is the Make in Italy.
Excuse me. Made in Italy.
Okay, Make in Italy. And he's co-curator of the Maker Faire Rome, which was last year, had its first year, an incredible exposition of makers from around Europe, but primarily focused in Italy. And this year, they're growing the Maker Faire Rome to even bigger and better things. So really excited to get to speak with Riccardo. Joining Riccardo is Francesca Mazzocchi. She's a lobbyist at CNA Toscana. She's managing promotion and innovation in fashion and handcrafted arts. She's focusing on cultural and technological frontiers. She works with CNA Next. It's an annual Made in Italy event. She's also worked as a researcher for MIT, conducting research on digital fabrication, specifically focusing on Tuscan handcrafted goods. And third on our panel is Tony DeRose, who is senior scientist at Pixar. He leads their research group, and he's also involved in numerous young maker education initiatives, STEM and so forth, bringing science, technology, and mathematics to junior high school and high school students. He has been involved with Maker Faire for many years, and he and his family have put together some of the coolest maker projects that I've seen. I'm thrilled about the stuff that he and his family have done. We're going to talk about some of those, and we'll hear more about that right now. So what I'd like to do is, would like to start off. We've got a presentation. Felix can help me get this set up from each of these, a slideshow from each of the presenters about their area of focus. I'd like to have Tony start by talking about the young makers, maker education. Of course, any questions from our other two panelists for Tony? If they come up during the presentation, that's fantastic. And I'll give you the lectern so you can jump in right here.
And the clicker is somewhere there. There you go. And you guys can sit down if you want to. You can use the mics on the chair, or you can do it here, whichever way.
Yeah, I think I can see a little better here. Being from Pixar, I can't help but tell stories. So one story I'd like to tell is kind of how I got into this whole business of looking at the educational aspect of making. And it really came from my kids. I have two boys that love to build things, and when the older one was about 8 and was graduating out of Legos, we realized there wasn't much for him to graduate into. So we started working on projects in the garage that mostly went unfinished until we discovered Maker Faire, and that gave us a deadline. So we started exhibiting projects in 2008, and it's become a family tradition where we pose a challenge for ourselves, and we work nights and weekends, and then hopefully take something interesting to the fair. This was our 2010 project. It's Saphira. It's a 8.5-foot tall animatronic fire-breathing dragon. Why not? How many of you have been to a Maker Faire? Yeah, a few of you? Okay, let me just spend a minute. So Maker Faire is a little bit like a county fair, except instead of vegetables and livestock being exhibited, makers, that is people that like to work on things, sometimes for their own enjoyment, sometimes for business, bring their projects to share with the public. And as Mike said, this last year, there were 120,000 participants. So when you take a project like this to the fair, the kids get a chance to talk about what they did and why and how it works to tens of thousands of people who come through the fair. And as a parent, it was just super rewarding to hear them talk about all the engineering that went into the thing, the software, the hardware, the safety. This was obviously a fairly dangerous project. So it became such an integral part of our family and such a rewarding experience that in late 2009, I approached Dale Doherty, founder of Maker Faire, and basically said, can we partner somehow to bring this kind of experience to more kids and more families? So that was the start of the Young Makers program, and the idea is simple. We just look for kids that like to build things, and we pair them with mentors, and we kind of shepherd their projects through up to exhibition here in May, which is when Maker Faire occurs. So this is a team that designed, you can probably tell what it is. It's obviously a hamster habitat that doubles as a coffee table. The projects come from the kids. It's not in response to a challenge, and so the range of things that kids come up with are really interesting. We work with a variety of schools. This is a school that we work with in Oakland. This team worked with their mentor to create a custom electric guitar instrumented with LEDs on the strings and the frets to illustrate the chord that was being played. This is a hovercraft powered by 2 leaf blowers. So again, the kids work on whatever they want to work on, and they'll learn whatever they need to learn in order to make their project come to fruition. So it's a really authentic, multidisciplinary, child-driven set of activities. They don't think of it as education, but there's really deep learning going on. This is Joey. He's a young maker from Arizona that we found out about back in 2010. He decided to build a marshmallow cannon that's propelled by air. So it's a pneumatic marshmallow cannon. It can throw a marshmallow about 400 feet. And Joey was invited to the White House. This picture's for real, and it hasn't been photoshopped. So this is in the executive dining room as part of an annual science festival that the Obama administration has been supporting. So as great as what you see on camera, it's equally funny what was off camera. There's about half a dozen really nervous Secret Service agents, hoping that this thing, doesn't go wrong. We had about 250 participants last year. We're scaling up to go national next year. The Young Makers program led to the creation of a new nonprofit called the Maker Education Initiative. They run a variety of programs. Young Makers is just one. I encourage you to check it out. It's at makered.org. And I think I'll release the lectern and let the other speakers come up.
So one of the things, Tony, that I think is a really important question. So someone like Joey here. Joey this year became Intel's youngest employee ever. He's 17 years old now and was just hired by Intel to help lead up special projects. I don't know if leading up, but participate in special projects. And it's an incredible thing. But the role of education in making, in driving forward innovation, I'd love to hear your thoughts and those of the others of how that's a crucial part of this whole concept, the concept of education and making.
So for me, authentic education is education where it's really motivating and exciting for the students to get involved in, and it's naturally multidisciplinary. I think the way we typically teach subjects, now you're going to learn math, now you're going to learn chemistry, now you're going to learn physics. The real world's not like that, right? The real world is multidisciplinary, and these kinds of projects give kids an opportunity to experience those multidisciplinary aspects, so that they not only learn fuel-air mixtures and pressures, for instance, in the case of Saphira, but they know how the chemistry and the physics interacts with the software, interacts with the mechanical design. And they really develop an innate intuition about how systems operate, not just individual topics, but how entire systems. It's also a great opportunity to learn how to work together in teams. And sometimes things go well on teams, and sometimes they don't. And it's amazing how much work gets done in the last 36 hours leading up to the fair.
Yeah, we're trying to do in Italy something like that. There's this movement and a new culture of education. The Montessori method now is coming back also in our education system, even if they are just pioneers' experience, so isolated cases. But it's interesting how making is thinking, and this is a new concept. And watching the presentation of him, I think that from my point of view, is interesting how to understand how to insert in this system the role of the artisans maestros. So, because anyone in Italy and in Europe now wants to do or to learn how to do things and old jobs, such as carpenters, or something else. But the role of making it's very important in this thing. So the most interesting aspect is to contaminate this manufacturing and the traditional way of making with the technologies and so on. So how can we do that?
Well, I think if you just ask the kids, what do you want to make? That opens up the door to all sorts of directions. I think you'll be surprised by how their answer to that question just naturally incorporates new technologies, old technologies, engineering, but also art. Saphira, for instance, had, some people said she was beautiful. And the girls that built the hamster habitat, that was in response to the fact that they were upset that animal habitats are typically large, ugly metal boxes. And this was their response, was to try to make something beautiful that was also functional.
Usually I'm a very positive person, a very optimistic person, but if we talk about education in Italy, I cannot resist by telling, what I think is the truth. We have a huge gap. In the previous panel I heard, I think it was Fernando Napolitano said that we have some of the best universities in the world. I don't know, maybe true, but in Italy, for instance, 4 Italians out of 10 don't use the web, don't use the internet. 1 Italian out of 10 never used a computer, a personal computer. So, I mean, I think we have a huge gap in digital skills in Italy. It's not just an Italian, computer literacy in general, it's not just an Italian problem, it's a European problem, but in Italy is ranked just at the bottom of the rank. So I think we should work a lot in education and invest a lot of our time and our energy in education. Educating not just the kids, but also people of my age, even older than I am. Because otherwise we cannot find a way a way out of the economic crisis that we are waging right now. And for instance, I think that the makers movement is so important, also because the Fab Labs that are flourishing in Italy. We have, I think, like 50 Fab Labs now in Italy, and they're counting every week there is a new one now. I think that they're an important place where you can go and not invent a new company, not start a new company, but just learn something new. Learn that the digital innovation, that making things can be easy, useful, fun, and you can make it. I mean, it's not out of your reach. So that's why I think that the makers movement is playing a major role now in Italy. Just in trying to make innovation, I would say, sexy, not just popular, sexy. Something that people, I mean, it's not just something for nerds or for geek, but it's for everybody, and it's for the wealth of the whole society. That's why it's so important now.
I think this is working now. Great, thanks, Felix. So one of the things that I think really is interesting is that Maker Faire is not just a kids-focused event. It's an event from that focuses on people for all ages, from 0 to 100. And I know when you had Maker Faire last year in Rome, some of the reports that I heard, I wasn't able to attend that one, but I'm really looking forward to this year.
There is a clip, I think, a 1 minute clip. Maybe we can see.
Yeah, so I know some of the things that I heard it was slightly different than the Maker Fairs that we have here, but and I know you have you got your clip, you got a slideshow. So if we could get that pulled up, I think we're getting that. You could run through it, and we can see this clip. And I'd love to hear your thoughts about what Maker Faire was for you this past year, and we can discuss the differences and some of the opportunities as well.
I mean, I would start with a word. It's astounding success. I mean, Dale Daugherty, the man that you mentioned before, the man who is credited with inventing the Maker Faire and the Maker Movement and whatever, when he wrote a report about the Rome Maker Faire Rome, he wrote it was an astounding success. I didn't know the word astounding until he used it, so I went to check it. So it was a success, a big success, an unexpected success. It means that, I mean, probably also, our American people, American guests didn't expect that we could have such a big event in Rome about innovation, but neither we expected something like this. In the press conference a week before, the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce of Rome, was the entity paying for the whole event, said that we were waiting for around 20,000 people. And I remember I was just really angry. I said, how can you say that? I mean, 20,000 is huge. I don't know if we can make it. At the end, there were around 40,000. And it was something, it was like a never-ending party. And I remember the day we closed, Sunday afternoon, people were still there around the Palazzo dei Congressi, still dancing and having fun and playing with kids. I remember here you have my daughter. There is that day there was my younger kid, my younger son, and he's 4 years old. He told me at the end, Papa, can you bring me here back every single day? And so I realized that, I mean, that was the point. For the first time, I could tell that innovation, people could perceive that innovation was fun, and it was important. And that changed. It was like a game changer for our country in a certain way. It was the biggest event about innovation in our country. I mean, innovation is not very popular in Italy. I think yesterday it was the second anniversary of the first time ever that the word startup has been printed in the front page in an Italian newspaper. It was 2 years ago. It's only 2 years ago the word startup. And startup has been like a buzzword for us, also to promote innovation. You know, it's been like a Trojan horse to say, well, come on, innovation can be important. Makers is the Italian way to have a startup, because we are very good in design, we are very good in manufacturing. We are the second country for manufacturing in Europe, so we are very good in that, design, manufacturing, prototyping things. So the maker startups can be the Italian way to innovation. I don't know if we can pass through.
Yeah, you can click through here if you've got the...
Let's see if it's working.
Yep, looks like it is.
Yeah, these are only the photos, but I don't see the video clip. Okay, but there will be somewhere. This is the. I mean, last year it was a 4-day event. The opening day was. The opening day there was like an opening conference about, like I would say TED-like style. About the title was How to Make the World. Then we had the second day was education for kids and startups. And then 2 days open to the public. Now. This year we are planning a 9 days event where Maker Faire is going to play a major role, maybe 5 days, with a huge section about kids and a very strong focus about startups. I mean, we have to make a step toward demonstrating that. I mean, this movement can really improve Italian GDP. Can really do something to tackle the double-digit unemployment rate we are waging right now. I mean, we have to now. In the first year, we demonstrated that it's fun and it's lively and it's a nice thing to do. Now we have to demonstrate that we can change our society for better.
So one of the things that that we've really tracked as part of a big part of the maker movement is access to technologies that typically have been a little bit more difficult for people to use at home. And I think one of the first things that I really look at is microprocessors becoming cheap and easy to use. I think Arduino has really been the big thing that's opened the doors and allowed people to access technology. And it's because of those microprocessor, microcontroller boards that we've then seen people be able to innovate things like at-home 3D printers and consumer quadcopters with autonomous flight. We've seen the cost of sensors, including GPS sensors, drop dramatically, and it's allowed people to, makers, to build tools that haven't existed before. And then we've got things like crowdfunding that have allowed them to get their products and their ideas out to huge amounts of people. And these are the things about making that get me excited in a very big way. But some of those key technologies, I'm really curious, and I think I'm curious if we've got the clip that you've been talking about. I'm not sure if it's in there. Okay. But one of the big differences on the U.S. side is, these are the technologies we look at. We don't have a tradition necessarily of the handcrafted goods, the artisan history. Where on the Italian side, the European side, this is something that's been part of the DNA. This is part of the heritage of Europe and of Italy. And I'm really curious how that perception of making is looked at by the entirety of Europe with those differences in mind. And I would love for you, and Francesca, I know that you talk a lot about.
Yeah, can I have my presentation?
Yeah, that would be fun.
And yes, because when we speak about making in Italy and in Europe, we can't speak about artisans, because they are maybe the same things, but in two different points of the timeline, you know? As Alessandro Baricco, a famous Italian writer, says, makers are just like the new barbarians, because they live in a new world. Instead, artisans come from the past, and they have heritage that is a skill, but also a boundary, you know, to open to other experience. But it's interesting that put together these things, and with Riccardo, we work together too, trying to link and contaminate makers with artisans. So I prepared a slideshow because maybe we can understand better what is, who are artisans watching at this picture. And this is, for example, an artisans refine a 3D printed material. And so this is the imagine of what we can do together with new technologies and digital fabrication and artisan skills. Who are artisans? Those who have the know-how to produce beautiful things. So in Italy, we cannot speak about artisans and beauty, the great beauty is one of artisans are one of the great beauty of Italy. Young people who renew historical traditions, those who make things with their own hands, so the use of hands is an important asset. Those who know how to give form to matter, and so they know deeply how to do things and how can transform matter. Those who create unique and special products, and those who create tailor-made products, customized on your needs, the new luxury concept. This is a complex word, which these aspects of customizing and tailor-made are very important and became famous all over the world. So, artisans and makers. It's a matter of making, it's a matter of time. The first is a contact point, because the culture of making is the thing that put together makers and artisans. It's a matter of time for the facts I told before. So time, it's something that divided these two worlds. And then, but we want to speak about making just cultural phenomenon, but also as economic fact. In Italy, we have 1.4 million of small and medium enterprises of the artisan sector, and 600,000 of these operating in the manufacturing sector. So it's really an economic fact. And so we have two goals. On one side, we have to encouraging the birth of a new generation of makers, as we know here, but also take artisans out of their box to assure them a new renaissance. And we think that we could win this challenge just through two things: education on one side and contamination on the other. And Fab Labs are not only a wonderful way to spread the culture of making, but also the new economical platform of contamination, where manufacturing can renew itself. And then after, so these are other aspects that we have to provide to all artisans, that are the use of the web and the logic of the web, of sharing that the web inspires. And so we trying to learn how to communicate our products and the added value that there is in an artisan's object. Education and contamination. So next, there are some examples of innovation in traditional sector. For example, Caino design, to take that, to trying to say that innovation is not only Arduino, 3D printing and digital fabrication, but also the opportunity to hybridize a different sector. And for example, Caino Design, it's a small enterprises that operated in the automotive sector. It is a subcontractor of Fiat. And they open a new business line on design, and with the same technology, of the automotive, photo printing. They now make objects in the field of design and furnishing, and so on. This is another innovation case, not tech, but innovation by design. Two carpenters and a luthier worked together to create this object that is an acoustic amplifier without technology. Just with the 52 cuts into the wood, they create this object that can amplify the sound of your iPhone of the 30%, for example, and so on. This is another one. Litho, they are a subcontractor for Biticino. They are skills in the technical ceramics, and they transition to a new field of the design. And these are a fantastic two vessels. The one above is for flowers with water, and the one below is with land. And with the technical knowledge of the material, the water upon soak the ground below. So it's a design object, but also a technological one. Okay, just some examples.
So I'm curious how within Europe and Italy, how crucial would you guys say tech is in the concept of making? Do you see that as a crucial component, or just one component of many?
It's a very important component, but it's not the only one, actually. Sometimes in the project we have just seen, you can spot the difference between an artisan and a makers. I mean, are they artisans or are they makers? I mean, sometimes you can tell that that's important, because I think what makers are doing to artisans, that it's a precious, dying world, is they're giving new life to this world, that it's so important for us, for our future. They're not just giving new life, also transferring digital skills, but they are also, how can I tell, they're rebranding a world that we would have no attraction at all, no allure at all. I mean, I would never figure out a young student telling I want to be an artisan. Now they tell I want to be a maker. And maybe it's not the same, in the same direction, but I mean, it's a rebranding that's so important, because you don't lose this art of making and projecting things. Also projecting, also I can tell, also a new kind of society, because making is also reusing, recycling, remaking things, not wasting things, and trying to invent things all the time. So it's a proactive attitude to our life. So it's so important that making is the new artisans.
That makes sense, yeah. So
I love thinking of makers as barbarians too. It's just
it's an interesting way of putting it, but I definitely understand the way that you're saying it and what it means. So last summer we do an event called Maker Camp. It's a 6-week-long virtual summer camp that partnered up with Google. We do an hour a day of this Google Hangout broadcast where we teach our campers different hands-on projects. At the end of every week, we do a field trip to a really interesting place. And our final field trip at the end of Maker Camp, our final episode, we did at Pixar. Pixar is a phenomenal company with really incredible employees. And we gathered together, there must have been a dozen different Pixar employees who all identify themselves as makers, and they all had a different focus. One person is making, he's hand-making telescopes. Another person has created these Delta 3-legged robots, which have a really unique movement, really adorable design to them. There's Kurt Fleischer and his daughter who've presented at Maker Faire various times, who've done a number of different really interesting projects, including a water seesaw project. But one of the things that I think is really interesting is the idea of how does this, like if we identify ourselves as makers, or if we use this concept, the term maker, as a way to say, I'm a creative person who likes to try new things and to make things and to expand my skill set. A company like Pixar, which is really a leader in what they do and a leader just in general in business, how do you see companies like this starting to look at that type of mindset for an employee and the way that this can be a benefit to their company?
So when we first started the Young Makers program, I reached out to my social network because there were a lot of makers at Pixar, and I just thought there were a lot of makers at all companies. And I found out that that's really not the case yet, which really got me thinking, why do we have such a maker density at Pixar? And I think the reason is that making involves, interesting mashups of, putting things together that you didn't, think to put together. They often work in groups. They are energized by learning new skills and techniques, and those are all attributes that we hire for at Pixar. Making computer graphics movies, we had to invent it all. We need people that are both artisans and technologists. We need people that know how to work in groups. We need people that can retrain themselves because the field moves so quickly. I can't tell you what our business is going to look like in 5 or 6 years. So we really need people that are very adaptable. And those are all qualities that are brought to bear when you make as well. And I think one thing that corporations should be thinking about, especially ones in the tech industry, is by helping to build a maker culture in your company, you're helping to build those attributes of just-in-time learning, putting together ideas that you didn't expect. My personal belief is that as a society, we've benefited a lot over the last 50 years or so through specialization. So we've gotten really good at going really deep. But I think the next couple of decades, a lot of the interesting stuff is going to cut across. And finding surprising connections between disciplines that you didn't think would go together. And that's really aligned with what makers do. So I think it'll be valuable to corporations to try to help build maker cultures within their walls. Yeah.
Mike, I think there is before we run out of our time, I think there is a short story that can tell us in a nutshell what is happening in Italy right now with the maker movement. Before you mentioned Massimo Banzi and the role that Arduino is playing in the maker movement. I mean, it's been so important worldwide and finally in Italy. I mean, it spread the business worldwide much before it arrived in Italy, the news that Arduino was so important. That's peculiar, but I mean, at the end, now Arduino is something important also in Italy. And the story is that now Massimo Banzi is the president of his former CEO. And he's the president of this new foundation. It's called Make in Italy, for a new Made in Italy. It's the Italian Fab Lab and Makers Foundation. We founded the foundation, I think, 3 weeks ago. And this is, the other founders, it's Carlo De Benedetti. He's the former CEO of Olivetti in Ivrea. And he was the CEO in Ivrea 20 years ago. And Massimo was the webmaster in Olivetti. So probably the less important employee in Olivetti. And now Carlo De Benedetti decided to put 500,000 euro in the foundation to foster this movement in Italy, to help to open new fab labs, to share knowledge among the makers, and to contribute to invent a new made in Italy through innovation. And Massimo is the president of his former CEO. I think it's important. It's a very powerful image.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely. Yeah, it really validates the concept that this is not just an idea, but it's really something that's taken root and has now become it's become a real thing. Yeah.